debate. If you are going to debate and you want to cast a ballot, you need to be back here after the debate if you want to vote counted. If we could please find our seats. We want to bring up next Judge Roy Moore. He served as a captain of the United States Army. He was a West Point graduate, a Vietnam veteran, the former Chief Justice of the Alabama Supreme Court, has been listed as a potential Republican presidential candidate, graduated from the University of Alabama School of Law in 1977. Moore has authored his autobiography, So Help Me God, and numerous other publications. He's nationally known speaker on constitutional law and civil liberty. Please give a warm welcome to Judge Roy Moore.
And your understanding is that the federal court ordered that you could not acknowledge God, isn't that right?
Yes.
And if you resume your duties as Chief Justice after this proceeding, you will continue to acknowledge God as you have testified that you will today, no matter what any other official says.
Absolutely. Without, if I can clarify that, without an acknowledgement of God, I cannot do my duty. I must acknowledge God. It says so in the Constitution of Alabama. It says so in the First Amendment to the United States Constitution. It says so in everything I've read. So,
the only point I'm trying to clarify, Mr. Chief Justice, is not why, but only that, in fact, if you do resume your duties as Chief Justice, you will continue to do that without regard to what any other official says. Isn't that right?
well, I would do the same thing this court did when starting with prayer. That's an acknowledgement of God. I would do the same thing that justices do when they place their hand on the Bible and say, so help me God. It's an acknowledgement of God. The Alabama Supreme Court opens with, God save this state and this honorable court. It's an acknowledgement of God. In my opinions, which I've written many opinions, acknowledging God as the source, a moral source of our law. And I think you must.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to be here with you today, and I hope I just put that little video clip on at the last minute, so I hope you see. I got the idea actually from Mr. Jack Hunter. If you want to know where the Tea Party movement started, it was started when you opposed the federal court for taking the most inalienable right we have, the right to acknowledge God. And that's where we started. Back in 2003, and since that time it's grown and grown and grown. I don't say I started the Tea Party, I didn't. But the Tea Party exists to stand for the principles on which this nation was founded. I'd like to thank Jessica Cross for the introduction, and I'd like to thank Mr. Chris Lawton and the Greenville Tea Party for the invitation to speak to you. I'd like to point out I'm here with a good friend, Rick Belton, and he has assisted me on this occasion, and I'll be back on May 23rd to talk around the state. I will not be a part of the debate tonight because I have just formed an exploratory committee and didn't qualify under the rules that you had to have 4 nationwide polls. Nobody's polled me yet. Finally, I want to thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule to be here, to be a part of the American Tea Party movement. My website is roymore2012.com. If you want any more about my candidacy or my exploratory commission. You know, as a veteran of Vietnam, I know firsthand the cost of freedom. I know firsthand because I fought in that terrible war. And many of my classmates from West Point and many fellow soldiers died in that conflict. Young men they were, brave, plucked from immense life and the flower of their youth. but they fought for their country and they fought for freedom. I'm saddened today to know where our country has gone since the late 60s and early 70s, and how our freedoms for which we fought are being taken away by those we have placed in public office. And like you, I'm a little fed up with politics. I'm tired of politicians in both parties that love power and holding office more than they do principle and serving the public good. It seems that the more the Republicans and Democrats appear to disagree, the more they act like each other once they take office. But we can ill afford at this time in our history to ignore the moral, economic, and constitutional crisis which is now upon us. I thank God for the Tea Party movement, because I believe, as James Madison did, that it is proper to take alarm at the first experiment on our liberties. It's one of the first duties of citizenship. The Tea Party movement has already made a difference in the landscape in Washington. Were it not for you, there would be no national debate over the budget, no national indebtedness. And we have the right to be concerned with the future, our future and the future of our children and our grandchildren. But I know too that the only way to judge the future is by judging the past. And judging by the past, I want to ask you, what has there been in the conduct of the American government under both administrations of Republicans and Democrats during the last 10 years to justify those hopes with which we've been so easily deceived? Let's look at the facts. Our industries have been destroyed by treaties like NAFTA and CAFTA, all in the name of free trade. I'll tell you, there's nothing free about losing jobs. We need jobs back in America, and we need made in America to mean something again. Our borders remain open against the law, while criminals, terrorists, and those who have no regard for our culture and heritage invade our borders. Common sense dictates if we can defend the borders of Afghanistan thousands of miles away, we can stop right here on our own soil, in our own homes, the invasion from the south and from the north. Our national indebtedness of $14.26 trillion is higher than the accumulated debt of all the federal government and all the presidents from 1789 to 2010, over 220 years. And this will inevitably lead to outrageous inflation, enormous taxation, and a weaker economy. Our beloved Constitution is routinely ignored and trampled underfoot by judges who would rather rule by their own feelings and sentiments and foreign law than the Constitution was sworn to uphold. Meanwhile, the actions of our current President, Barack Obama, is best described by our own Declaration of Independence. The history of the Obama administration and Barack Obama is a history of repeated injuries and usurpations, while having a direct object, the establishment of an absolute tyranny over these states. To prove this, let facts be submitted to a candid world. He's apologized to the world for our past, stating that we're no longer a Christian nation, and at the same time stated that we were one of the largest Muslim nations in the world. He has pursued a socialist agenda by taking control of private companies and banks and establishing and passing a national health care law which will inevitably destroy the best medical system in the world. He has pushed homosexuality on our military, refused to defend the law passed by Congress in 1996 known as DOMA, Defense of Marriage Act, that marriage is traditional marriage between one man and one woman.
That's right.
And boldly declares the month of June each year to be a month to celebrate gay, lesbian, bisexual, and transgender pride. Under the Obama administration, virtue and morality have been distorted to the point that good is now called evil, and evil is now called good. He's ignored the Constitution of the United States by sending missiles against a foreign country, Libya, without a declaration of war by Congress as required by the Constitution, or any immediate threat to our country under War Powers Resolution. And he did so only at the bequest of foreign countries. He's violated the 10th Amendment to the United States Constitution, bringing suit against the state of Arizona for protecting the health, safety, and welfare of its citizens, while he refused to enforce the immigration laws he was sworn to uphold. He supported taxpayer funding for abortion embryonic stem cell research, and Planned Parenthood. And he's appointed Justice to the United States Supreme Court, now two, who will support his agenda. He has used his office to usurp the role of parents over education of our children, with a $4.35 billion race to the top, when the federal government has no such power under the Constitution. Quite simply, I submit that Barack Obama is the most pro-abortion, anti-Christian, un-American president in the history of the United States. The Declaration of Independence, a prince whose character is marked by every act which defines a tyrant is unfit to be the ruler of a free country. My fellow Americans, in closing, permit me to draw upon the wisdom of one of our first patriots, Patrick Henry, in his speech to the Virginia delegation on March 23rd, 1775. This is no time for ceremony. The question before us is one of awful moment for our country. For my part, I consider it nothing less than a question of freedom or slavery. If we wish to be free, if we wish to preserve inviolate those inestimable freedoms for which we have so long contended, if we mean not basely to abandon the noble struggle in which we have been so long engaged, we must fight. An appeal to the God of hosts is all that is left us. Some in political circles, and even the press, will say that the Tea Party movement is weak and unable to cope with so formidable an adversary. But when shall we be stronger? Will it be the next week or the next year? Will it be when we are totally disarmed and a British or UN guard is stationed in every house? Your presence here today shows that the Tea Party movement is not weak, and we do not intend to lie down in the face of tyranny. Besides, we have no choice in this matter. There is no retreat but in submission and slavery. All across the country, people gather to protest the egregious policies of this administration and the inept political establishments which have done nothing to correct our problems. Our brethren are already in the field. Why stand we here idle? What is it that you would wish?
Preach loud.
Microphone's not off.
Yeah, preach it.
I didn't need it. Our brethren are already in the field.
Yeah.
Why stand we here idle? What is it that you wish? What would the gentleman have? Is life so dear, or is peace so sweet as to be purchased at the price of chains and slavery? Forbid it, Almighty God, I know not what course others may take. But as for me, give me liberty, or give me death. 40 years have passed since I was in Vietnam. And the faces of those young men who were shot and killed in that terrible war and in wars since may have dimmed with time. But the memory and the cause for which they fought shall never be forgotten. It remains for us to carry on the noble struggle. And if we are united in our cause, dedicated to our country, and committed to our God,
Yes.
we will not fail. May God be with you, the great state of South Carolina, the United States of America. God bless you.